Hello and welcome to People and Profit, where we look at how business shapes our world. I'm Marcus Carlson. Coming up, core issues will tell you why the resignation of a top executive at power company EDF spells fresh trouble for France's nuclear industry. The world's second biggest economy on shaky ground. Chinese leaders cut their annual forecast amid fresh signs of slowing growth. Plus, a silver lining for the Japanese economy. A growing share of seniors keep punching the time clock after retirement. More on that later, but first, though, to a power outage at French utility EDF. Its chief financial officer has resigned over a €23 billion plan to build a nuclear plant in the southwest of England. The now former finance chief wanted the French state-owned company to wait before making a final investment decision. The resignation is also damaging to the image of a new reactor type that's been billed as the future of the French nuclear industry. Clément Bonneau has more.
This was supposed to be a symbol of EDF's engineering prowess. But the French energy giant's so-called EPR technology is proving both costly and controversial. Plans to build a new reactor at Hinkley Point in the UK recently suffered a major setback, as EDF's chief financial officer resigned following an internal disagreement over whether to go through with the investment. Thomas Piquemal had tried to convince management that the company should wait at least 3 more years, insisting EDF's finances are not strong enough. Last October, the company agreed to finance 2/3 of the project, with the other third coming from Chinese nuclear company CGN. But with electricity prices hitting an all-time low, EDF is struggling to find the cash. Shares have dropped by more than 50% over the last year, now trading at a little over €10. There are also concerns about other EPR projects in northern France and Finland, which are years behind schedule and billions over budget. Last but not least, a state-backed takeover of Areva, the French reactor maker, has made EDF's financial situation even more delicate. The group now has €37 billion worth of debt and is worth only €18.5 billion. The future of the Hinkley Point project now hinges on the political will of both France, who owns 85% of EDF, and Britain. Both countries have said they still back the deal.
We renew our full support for the Hinkley Point project, which is an important project for EDF and will be profitable over the coming 30 years.
EDF's chief executive hopes the final Hinkley investment decision could come as early as next month.
This story is just the latest in a string of bad news for the French nuclear industry, and Stephen Carroll is here now with more on that. Stephen.
Marcus, the French-designed EPR was meant to be the future of nuclear energy. When it was first launched, the then boss of EDF promised the reactors would sell like hotcakes. But it hasn't been that easy. Apart from Hinkley Point, there are 3 other sites where these next-generation reactors are being built. One is in the northern French town of Flamanville, one is in Finland, and 2 are at the Taishan site in Guangdong province in China. But none of these reactors are up and running yet. The Finnish one was the first to be commissioned in 2005. It's now 9 years behind schedule and €5 billion over budget. The French plant isn't doing any better. It's running 6 years late and costs have ballooned from $3 billion to over 10. The Chinese projects are running around 2 years late as well. Now, all of this has been combined with a global fall in demand for nuclear power stations. France's state-owned nuclear firm Areva fell into a deep financial hole, reporting record losses of almost €5 billion in 2014 and €2 billion last year. It's had to slash costs and up to 6,000 jobs around the world. Now, Areva needed a bailout, and for that, the French government leaned on another state-owned utility, EDF. It's agreed to buy Areva's reactor-building arm worth €2.5 billion. But that further exposes EDF to the cost of the Flamanville and Hinkley Point projects. The company's finances are already stretched. It's announced €1 billion worth of cost-cutting. And there's another big bill on the way, €50 billion to extend the lifespan of its nuclear power stations in France. With electricity prices set to stay low for now, France's nuclear industry could be facing a much darker future. Marcus.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Now, there are new worries over the state of China's economy and the effect that the slowdown there is having on the rest of the world. Trade figures from the month of February paint a gloomy picture. Chinese exports dropped by 25% on the same month last year. It's the sharpest drop in almost 7 years, suggesting that the world's appetite for Chinese goods is weakening. The Chinese government is also signaling that there's trouble ahead. At an annual meeting of the National People's Congress, the Prime Minister announced a lower annual growth target for 2016. He's aiming for growth of between 6.5% and 7%, down from 7% last year. While denying that the economy is heading for a so-called hard landing, officials admit they're on shaky ground.
I think that for this time period, the slow recovery of the global economy and its slow growth is going to remain. What's more, the financial upheavals, the dragging down of commodity prices and geopolitical risks cannot be underestimated and cannot be ignored. Therefore, uncertainties and unstable factors in the global economic environment continue to exist.
Let's get more now on the state of the Chinese economy and where it's heading. We can turn to Keiyu Jin, economics professor at the London School of Economics. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us, first of all. I want to ask you about this growth target of 6.5% to 7% for 2016. How realistic do you think that target is?
Well, unfortunately, the answer, I think, is it depends. And I say that because to reach that target is not difficult if the government is determined to push through a set of reforms and changes, but it would be very difficult if nothing else happens. And the kind of changes that would stimulate the economy is very simple, like expanding services which create employment and also unleash some of the dynamism for the private firms, which have been having trouble since the 1990s of getting funding. So I think there's quite a bit of room for improvement, but the question is, are these reforms going to be pushed through?
Now, the target range is much lower than what we've become accustomed to from China's side. We've come accustomed to double-digit growth even in the past 10 years or so. Will ordinary people, though, feel this Chinese slowdown? Will it make an impact in ordinary people's lives?
Well, first of all, I think lowering the target is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if the government wants to emphasize more on growth based on quality rather than just a fast pace. And also, I think it's important to give the ordinary Chinese household the right kind of expectations, even kind of a psychological, comfort that their wages will not be climbing as fast as they have seen it before. But I think more importantly, the household sector has actually not really benefited as much as the other government corporate sectors during this whole period of GDP growth. So it's not really just now. It's been around for 20 years that the household income share has been declining. So if you want to ask whether the households are going to feel it this time, most likely not, because while some employment is reducing in certain industries, like the industrial industries, employment is also rising in the services. So I think that the problem with the Chinese households is that more of a long-term issue where they're facing declining income, not so much about this current slowdown.
The government is trying to create this image that it is in full control of what's taking place and in full control of the slowdown. Do you think it is?
Well, one important thing is that confidence has to be managed very well. The government, with the recent experience, understands that fully. I think in the short term, if we're talking about control and management in terms of capital outflows, in terms of the stock market stability, in terms of the potential banking crises, I do think that the government still has quite a bit of levers to deal with, including the local government debt in the short run. So I don't see a massive, major devaluation of the currency or a triple crises coming China's way in the near term. However, if growth cannot be sustained, I imagine that some of these non-performing loans will be a problem. If these reforms cannot be pushed through, the government, these kind of arsenal will not last. So in the medium term, no, I don't think that they will have enough arsenal. But in the short term, I think they'll be able to deal with it.
Keiyu Jin at the London School of Economics, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
We're going to head to Japan next, where silver-haired seniors are proving a boon for the wider economy. More than 20% of Japanese people over 65 are still working, and with a shrinking population and fewer workers at hand, that figure is expected to rise even further to nearly 40% by 2060.
Retirement? Not for this 86-year-old. Teruo Sugiura spends 4 days a week in this workshop in Tokyo, repairing traditional Japanese sliding doors.
There's no point staying at home twiddling my thumbs. At least I'm happy working here, and I like the company.
Teruo is one of some 7 million Japanese who've returned to work after retiring. With a shrinking and rapidly aging population, this silver-haired workforce is, for some analysts, a boon for the country's flagging economy.
Increase in number of active workers will be a driving force of economic growth in the supply side, and also more growing number of active consumers will also be a driving force of economic growth in demand side.
And money is indeed the main reason many choose to return to work, with the average salary for pensioners like these around €300 a month. Taiko Nishima has been back in employment for 7 years. At 74, she's looking ahead, knowing that her pension will never be enough to pay for a nursing home.
It costs around 2,000 to 2,500 euros a month for full service. I can't do that with my pension, so I am putting money aside every month from what I earn here to plan ahead.
The government is gradually raising the retirement age to 65 by 2025, but even that would seem unlikely to deter Japan's geriatric working class.
There's no retirement in sight for people and profit, and we will be back again soon with more global business stories. In the meantime, stay with France 24, and if you have any comments or questions about the stories that we've covered in this program, connect with us on Facebook or tweet me at MarcusF24. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.